Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the HomeTurf podcast. I'm your co-host, Braxton Dore.
And I'm Justin Chen.
And this week, we come to you after a solid victory in Arlington.
Solid but ugly.
Yes, it was ugly, but that's what you can expect with the Southwest Classic, I feel like.
A win's a win, too, so I'll take any sort of win.
Exactly, especially under Jerry's home. I love that trophy being brought back to us, and it's probably one of the last times you're going to see that trophy, really, because you can't really call it a Southwest Classic when now you go visit each other in a regular season.
Yeah, it's going to be just a regular SEC game now.
Pretty much, yep. But moving on, now we have Missouri coming into home.
Second top 10 matchup this year, which is, in recent years, I don't think we haven't hosted top 10 teams many times, besides, of course, like Bama and stuff like that in LSU, but Missouri's a sleeper, or not a sleeper team, but when you talk about top 10 teams, Missouri has flown under the radar because obviously everyone talks about Miami, Bama, Texas, but Missouri's been consistently top 10.
Absolutely. And they, last year there was an argument that they should have, maybe played in the SEC championship and all that stuff. And I really think they were one of the, if not like the top 4 of the SEC that could have gone and played in that game and actually put up, much of a fight against, the Georgias and the Alabamas and the SEC. But, moving on from that, what do you think about Marcel Reed, and is he truly the guy now?
Well, I'll say this. He hasn't thrown any picks. As a coach and as an offensive coordinator, you want to limit your turnovers. You want to get as much production without giving the other team the chance. And so far, he hasn't given up any picks. And, I mean, he still has the options with his legs, but it's still a bit iffy. I think he's still finding his footing. I think the Florida game, I don't want to call it a fluke, but it was I think nobody expected him, and that's why maybe Florida wasn't prepared. But now that he had that game out the way, everyone kind of knows how he plays now. So it's he's not under the radar anymore. I still think if you're still winning games with Marcel Reed, you still ride him. But with Connor, it's a very interesting question for sure. But in my opinion, I'd still give the nod to Reed.
I agree. And what's also interesting to note is he's, obviously touted as a dual threat. People don't want to acknowledge the fact that he's got 2 touchdowns in every game since Florida in the air. This is not in the ground. This is just in the air. And he's gotten north of 160 yards every game in the air. I think that is a testament to how comfortable he feels versus how comfortable Wigman felt in that same role. And obviously you can't really compare the two now because you've got Reed who's got, 3 starting games versus Wigman's really true just 1 game against Notre Dame. Which
at the time, a top 5 defense too.
Yeah, exactly. And it was also at that point where it was the first game of the year, first game under Mike Elko. It's a whole first game under Colin Klein as well in the new scheme. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, that scheme does look better under Reed. Doesn't matter if Reed's the better fit or not, it looks better. It fits better with the dual threat, with the dual option that they've been running. And, you saw it again in the Arkansas win. He actually didn't have a lot on the ground. He really had to go through the air to get anything done.
Yeah.
I mean, he tried. He had 10 carries, but only 13 yards to show for it with, just really coming from 1 play.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a touchdown, yes, but that was really just a push in. Let's get this 2-yard touchdown run. And that could have gone to him or Le'Veon Moss, as we mentioned last week, who had he's just having a better and better game as the season goes on. I feel like every time we talk about this man, he just gets better.
It gets better and better. And as much as we talk about Wigman and Reed, we could just rely on Le'Veon Moss every single week, which is a very good thing. That's not a problem at all. I'd rather have this so-called problem of just having, between Reed and Wigman, and then in the backfield, Moss is just chilling with Daniels. I'd rather have that.
Exactly. But, and he had, let me make sure I got this right. He had, he's got 3 touchdowns already this year. Big game against Arkansas and a big game against Florida. People don't talk about the Florida game as much, but it was almost even when it comes to yards. He had 117 against Arkansas and 110 against Florida. And, you're really looking to this man now for stability in the backfield. And I really think ever since, the unfortunate injury to Reuben Owens, he's really stepped up out of the, remaining backs and Amari Daniels and EJ Smith.
He stepped up and beyond. I don't think anyone expected 70 yards every single game. His lowest game is 70 yards.
Exactly.
And within 5 games, he's already it's basically more or less his career high in yards. It's been 5 games. I don't think anyone expected this sort of production from him.
Absolutely not, especially when you look at the career stats, he's already above his last year total. I mean, he's already close to his last year total. He's about 15 or 13 yards away, which that's incredible to just do in 4 games. That is unreal.
And he's averaging 5-6 yards a carry, basically.
Yeah.
It's not like it's 3-4 yards, 40 carries. It's 15-20 carries, and he's making the most. And I also give the nod to our O-line. Our O-line has stepped up tremendously. Whenever Elko said he wanted the O-line to be the offensive identity, the O-line stepped up a huge, especially compared to last year. Last year it hurt to watch the offense at times because of the O-line.
Absolutely. And I feel like we kind of saw remnants of that O-line in the Notre Dame loss. And I really think it kind of just alludes to the fact that they just needed more experience with each other and under a new scheme or a new plan like they have with Colin Klein. And, it really just goes back to show that they can still move the ball. They can still do the things they did last year that were the bright spots, in some very dark games. And I feel like in the Arkansas game, they took that and just kept trying. And it was, there was some bad spots here and there where Marcel couldn't get the ball out quick enough, or where it was kind of like he was running with no purpose because he had nowhere to run. And you do see that when you face a defense like Arkansas's, and you are going to see that again, I think, versus Missouri, who has one of the best passing yards and rushing yards given up.
Just
as
overall
a defense.
It's top 3 in least yards given up. I think this is going to be the Notre Dame game for Reed. We'll see how he performs under this top 3 defense. Hopefully he responds to pressure, but again, this is his true first big game. I mean, I'm not saying Florida, all the other teams weren't good, but a top 10 team with a top 3 defense, it's going to be his Notre Dame game.
Absolutely. And I really think that is going to factor into their minds as well. They're seeing this top 10 defense, and they're saying, oh, we have to perform better than what we did against Notre Dame, or we're not going to have a chance in hell at making the playoffs. And that's kind of the attitude that kind of comes up in press conferences and then in post-game interviews. Because when I was at the press conference in Arlington, Le'Veon Moss was real short with his answers, real wanting to get to the point. And that point being is they're here to play. They're here to perform on the biggest stage possible and to prove that all these moves in the offseason weren't for nothing. And they were for a purpose. They new head coach, new OC. Everything was for a purpose, and it was to win and to get better as a group. And I feel like they are accomplishing those goals right now. And Missouri's just the next test. And I was watching the last Missouri game versus Vandy, and that defense did not look the same as their first 3 matchups. And especially against Boston College, who, still ranked, still a very good offense and defense unit. They, barely squeezed out a win versus Boston College and barely squeezed out a win versus Vanderbilt in a 2-overtime bout.
Against Vandy. I guess Vandy's back up.
I don't know if it's Vandy's back up or if Missouri came into the game just thinking they were going to roll over them. I don't really know what was up, because when I was watching, it looked like Vandy's quarterback could just run anywhere on that field.
And we have that problem now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have that problem with Marcel where you could see a lot from him or you could see him bottled up. It just, it depends on what look Missouri's going to give us.
And if I'm not mistaken, we are actually favored against Missouri So it gives us more motivation, especially with the whole top 10 controversy where we're tied with UNLV. I mean,
Yeah, tied with UNLV at 25.
It's very interesting.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense when you look at history-wise, but then when you look up the polling results, you can see why they had to do it. They had an even amount of votes split between UNLV and the Aggies.
And UNLV wholeheartedly deserves a spot.
They do.
They're going crazy without Sluka and everything.
Yeah, and the surprising thing with NIL and how it affects how some players choose to transfer or stay. It's great that they figured out a quick solution to a problem that is not very easily solved, especially since it's such a new problem today in sports. It makes me think, how much more are we going to see that? And how many more teams are going to have to overcome that, now we can't even start our starting quarterback that we recruited for 3 years.
I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've seen this type of problem for a contending playoff team. I've never seen anything like it.
As a top 25 team, which you can now say they are, it doesn't happen very, very often. You don't see players doing that very often, but hey, maybe this is a page turning in college athletics.
I
Who
agree.
knows?
I think this is a new, as you said, new page. This is going to be the start of not problems, but disagreements between schools and players. And I feel I'm not too sure if I agree. I don't know. It's very 50-50 because there's also conflicts within reports saying, he was supposed to get this amount of money, and the school's like, no, we didn't. It's very he said, she said. But at the end of the day, he's not playing for UNLV, but they're still doing it without him, and that's basically all she wrote.
Yeah, no, exactly. And pivoting more towards Missouri offense, because we've talked about our offense enough today. Let's focus on Brady Cook and who is going to be his basically sidekick for this game. I don't really know the answer to that. What do you think, Justin?
It's going to be a mix of my man Nate Noel and a tough-ass name, Luther Burden III. Oh,
yeah.
Such a good name.
That is a tough name. No, you're absolutely right. And I really think Burden might show up a little bit more than Noel in this game just because of how the Aggies' rush defense has looked in the past few games.
I agree.
They haven't allowed more than 200 yards or more than 250 yards in it's been several weeks. I think it was against Notre Dame. That was the last one. So it's what Aggie defense are you going to get today type game. But hey, I'm just going to say this. If Missouri plays us like they played the Commodores,
we'll be good.
It's a win.
Be good. And we should be in the top 20. We should be in the top 15, I feel like. Cause
I think if you win against a number 7 team, you should 15, 16, 17 range should be in your reach, I think. And I mean, especially when you've got teams like Illinois and Iowa, or not Illinois,
Indiana,
Illinois
and
Indiana.
Yeah,
yes.
it's like those are very iffy programs.
Well, it's the fact that they have not been able to play anyone of substantial.
Our only loss is Notre Dame. It was like
exactly.
It makes no at least to a very unbiased Aggie. It makes no sense, but
exactly.
It is what it is. It gives us more motivation. It kind of reminds me of basketball these past couple of seasons because I remember under Buzz, maybe not last year, but 2 years ago, we were on a crazy run, and then we kept being unranked, but it just kept feeling us. We had the whole slogan with Barstool, unranked or keep us unranked or whatever. It was like a whole movement.
It was a like don't rank us. Yeah, it was like don't give us any hope because we're thriving on the miracle.
Exactly.
And they did thrive on that miracle. I mean, like bubble team, they got in. So looking at their rushing attack, Noel had a lot of yards in this game versus Vanderbilt. He did not have a lot to show for it. He's had no touchdown, 24 carries, 199 yards. It's a big burden for one back with no touchdown to show for it. And I think that alludes to the Missouri red zone offense.
Just being pass heavy.
I think so. And when I was watching the game earlier, it really felt like it was a struggle only in the last 30 yards of the other team's half. And they just couldn't get it done. I mean, and then I see, the Missouri kicker shank a field goal that could have avoided the whole overtime mess. And it's just like, if you're going to let those small choices, those small, mistakes influence the outcome of the game, how's that going to look in Kyle Field in front of that many fans in this atmosphere, even at 11 a.m.?
It's going to be 100K easily.
Yeah, no, it will be. I fully expect we see 104, 105. Like, it will be a packed house in Kyle. And I don't know if Missouri has even really had that type of atmosphere yet. I mean,
most definitely not. I can say that with a certainty.
Yeah.
The only two big schools they played were Boston College and Vandy. And Vandy's an SEC school, but again, Kyle Field's still a top 3, arguably number 1 field to play in.
College Stadium.
Very, very hostile.
Absolutely. And I really think those factors will weigh in a little bit more heavily than they have in, let's say, the Bowling Green game, where you had maybe 75% of the stands filled, maybe 80, just depends. And it was a dogfight till the end. And it felt like no matter what the crowd was yelling, no matter how much crowd noise, Bowling Green kept getting it done. And that's what A&M needs to avoid happen this Saturday versus Missouri.
We need to ride on this on the crowd, not only ride it, but use it to our advantage. Again, the one thing I don't, I guess, particularly like is we are called a top 3, top 1 best or the most hostile field to play at, but yet sometimes our defense falters. It's like we need to back up that statement. But
exactly, and I agree. It really will be a test to what defense, what offense are we going to see from A&M? Are we going to see the same offense that came out against Florida, lights out, the same offense that eventually shone through versus Arkansas, or will we see the same offense that we saw versus Notre Dame? And it be lackluster and it be full of kind of fluff is what I like to refer to it as. Just fluff plays. Plays that don't seem like they're going anywhere. But who knows? We'll find out Saturday. And that's just about it for the HomeTurf podcast. We'll see you next week.